Je dois informer les membres que
I must inform members that the clerk can receive only motions for the election of the chair. They cannot receive any other motion nor hear any debates.
The chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 1062, the chair must be a member of the governing party. I am ready to receive motions for the chair. Yes, Ms. Idlout.
I would like to nominate Jenica Atwin for the chairperson's.
Are there any further motions? It has been moved by Ms. Idlout that Jenica Atwin be elected as chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion?
I think we have a recorded vote, if that's possible.
There's been a recorded vote requested. Thank you. Mr. Aldag.
I vote yes.
Ms. Atwin. Mr. Batiste.
Yes.
Mr. McLeod.
Yes.
Mr. Pulowski. Mr. Badaway.
Yes.
Mr. Weiler. Mr. Melillo.
Abstain.
Mr. Schmale. Mr. Vidal.
Abstain.
Mr. Zimmer. Madame Larouche.
En faveur.
Ms. Idlout.
Anyakpunga.
In favor.
8 yay, 4 abstain. I declare the motion carried.
I call the meeting to order. Bienvenue au 55th réunion.
Welcome to the 55th meeting of the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. Our meeting today is taking place in a hybrid fashion pursuant to Standing Order 108 second on the motion adopted by the committee on November 21st, 22nd, and the committee is continuing in person and by Zoom. And the web, for your information, the webcast will always show the person speaking, not the committee as a whole.
You may speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting in French, English, and Inuktitut. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. Please select your language now. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately, and we will ensure interpretation is properly restored before resuming the proceedings. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your mic will be controlled as normal by the proceedings and verification officer. S'il vous plaît, adressez vos interventions.
A reminder that all comments by members should be addressed to the chair.
And clearly, and I will also try to follow that rule. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. With regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. Our next study will be the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report on the research and comparative analysis on the estimates of the Department of Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs and the Department of Indigenous Services, which was Mr. Vidal's motion that was adopted last November 21st, 2022. Does the committee instruct the clerk to invite the appropriate witnesses for our meetings on April 24th and 26th, 2023? Seeing consensus? We also have to reschedule our witnesses from March 20th. Is it the will of the committee to reschedule the March 20 witnesses to April 17th and have drafting instructions and committee business on April 19th? Okay, seeing agreement? Agreed. Okay. So, study witnesses, just continue?
Yeah, just continue.
All right.
So we're resuming our study on the education.
All right, we will be resuming our study on education. Pursuant to Study Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on November 21st, 2022, the committee is resuming its study of improving graduation rates for Indigenous students. Today, we welcome Lisa Smith, Interim Advisor to the President of Native Women's Association of Canada via video conference, although I'm told we may have an issue there we will have to address. Thomas Sierzicki, I hope I'm saying that correct, Saskatchewan Ministry of Education, appearing in person. Thank you very much for being with us today. Margaret Moss, Professor and Director of First Nations House of Learning, University of British Columbia, by video conference. We will have 5 minutes for each of our speakers, and I'll please be on your time, but I'll be there to remind you as well. Okay. And just go to our first witness? Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Moss.
If we could hear from Dr. Moss first, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee today to speak on Indigenous student experiences, retention, and success at UBC with a focus on the Vancouver campus where I'm stationed. So how students experience place. UBC is on the unceded, ancestral, and traditional territory of the Musqueam people. This ongoing relationship includes land acknowledgement, place names in Hukaminam, artwork, recognition, and dialogue about place in most areas of the university. This supports learning and connection to this land for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. This recognition is a reminder to students about the commitment between Musqueam and UBC to participating in a relationship that relies on the authentic relationship. UBC Longhouse and the First Nations House of Learning are features of the campus for the Indigenous community. Long-term Indigenous strategic planning has encouraged the incorporation of Indigenous staff members throughout the units and faculties to ensure there are opportunities for belonging throughout the campus. We have the Indigenous Strategic Plan, which launched in 2020 with 8 goals, including, I'll just read a couple: leading at all levels, advocating for truth, moving research forward, indigenizing curriculum. Student success is dependent on belonging. Students need to feel that someone at UBC cares about them. Often, the greatest support that students find is in their peer connections, investing in programming and resources that enrich community and connection experiences is important tools in supporting the Indigenous student experience. There's great diversity of Indigenous students at UBC, each with their own unique needs. We need to ensure that there are many different spaces and resources for students to connect. The UBC Longhouse and the Chautauquam Collegium provide spaces where staff and student staff are invested in creating belonging by reaching out and supporting students. Additional campus spaces and support for Indigenous students ensure that there's flexibility, so students also have the ability to change spaces and supports as needed. Indigenous student leaders play a leading role in creating community and are aware of resources, staff connections, and are guided by curriculum that reflects changes, challenges, and opportunities for the year. So academic and mental health and wellness supports are so important for Indigenous students. Indigenous academic advisors need to exist in all faculty to support the specific needs of Indigenous students within faculty learning environments. Although there are numerous tutoring programs available on campus, our Indigenous student-focused program at the First Nations House ensures that students have a place to receive support that is safe. The Collegium also runs academic support programs, Indigenous student-led, that incorporate the importance of well-being and academic success. The Professor and Collegiate program ensures that Indigenous students have the opportunity to build community with an Indigenous faculty member. And finally, mental health supports for Indigenous students is well thought out and continues to grow to meet student need. UBC has an Indigenous mental health and wellness support team that provides one-on-one support. There's crisis support and connection to long-term supports. Early Alert, a campus-wide program, also exists to intervene and advocate for students who may face multiple challenges in their academic journey. And enrollment services professionals work to support by providing financial, housing, and registration advice. Our enrollment numbers for 2021 academic year were 2,204 Indigenous students, with a total headcount of 72 plus around both campuses. The programming I have mentioned are for the Vancouver campus, where around 1,500 Indigenous students attend. First year undergrad retention is at 88%. And finally, in 2021, 329 degrees were conferred to Indigenous students, graduate and undergraduate, on the UBCV campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. We'll now proceed to our next witness, Thomas Sierzicki. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the invitation and congratulations, Ms. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here in the nation's capital in unsurrendered territory, the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, discuss topics that are very important to me. I come from La Ronge, Saskatchewan, located on Treaty 6 territory and home of the Métis people. As a lifelong Northerner and the father of 2 Indigenous boys, I hope to bring perspective of the work that is being done and needs to be done in order to improve graduation rates and successful outcomes for Northern and Indigenous students. I've had the opportunity to work with the Saskatchewan Ministry of Education for close to 7 years. As Education Advisor to the Deputy Minister's Office, there are several crucial developments that have improved the educational opportunities for Northern and Indigenous students. As we work towards educational improvement in the province, our Minister, the Honourable Dustin Duncan, and Deputy Minister Donna Johnson have set priorities to ensure a path of collaborative journey with Indigenous, Northern, and Métis partners. In the spirit of collaboration, the Ministry of Education has been working on a new provincial education plan that is inclusive and cognizant of the students we serve. This plan will serve as the foundation of education in the province until 2030 and includes Indigenous knowledge throughout. Indigenous and Métis stakeholders are part of the creation and implementation of this innovative plan. Areas such as student mental health are also pillars of this plan. There are 5 important aspects that are critical investments to improve education of Indigenous, Métis, and Northern students. The first one being strategic investment in resourcing into the early years. As numerous studies have indicated, strategic investment in early childhood development have significant societal and financial gains. As a province, we have invested in family resource centres, Kids First North, early childhood intervention programs, and child care centres. The Canada-Saskatchewan Wide Early Learning and Child Care Agreement and the Canada-Saskatchewan Bilateral Early Learning and Child Care Agreement are two examples of the collaborative nature of the levels of government coming together to impact kids. Curriculum and instructional supports. In addition to collaborative and inclusive curriculum model, the Ministry of Education, following their voices, Invitational Shared Services Agreement, and Learning Opportunities Program, or the LOP, provides supports, collaboration, and funding to improve teacher practice, engage school divisions, and First Nations ed authorities. LOP funding includes science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM instruction. Saskatchewan mandated treaty curricula in 2007 and has proven to be extremely important for all students in the province. The third one being infrastructure investment. It is important that Northern First Nations communities have access to safe and welcoming schools that are reflective of them within their communities. The Ministry of Education continues to invest in school renovation and replacement, with a strong example being the $30 million elementary school that is currently being built in La Loche. As quoted by Minister Duncan, this new elementary school will serve as not only the students of families of La Loche, but the broader community for generations to come. The school is set to open in spring 2025 and has been designed with community aspects throughout. Number 4, teacher recruitment and retention. Teacher recruitment and retention continues to be an issue in Northern Saskatchewan. The Government of Saskatchewan continues to fund teacher programs such as the Dene Teacher Education Program in the Losh and local regional colleges to provide local teacher education programs. It is well understood that teachers learning in their respective communities have a higher success rate and are more inclined to stay and teach in the communities they call home. When Indigenous, Northern, and Métis students see the teachers are just like them, this creates an atmosphere of trust, pride, and success. The Ministry of Education also works with local school divisions on best ways to support their recruitment and retention plans in both strategic and financial ways. The fifth being distance learning opportunities. The Government of Saskatchewan is in the process of establishing a new Saskatchewan Distance Learning Corporation, or Sask DLC. The new centralized school will streamline online learning in the province and provide students across the province equal access to more than 180 online courses for kindergarten to grade 12 students, including more than 120 high school electives to choose from. The SAS DLC will have a central office in Kenniston, Saskatchewan, with 9 additional satellite locations that will help serve every geographic region in the province. In-school online facilitators will assist students with learning challenges they may experience. It is important to note that the SAS DLC will provide opportunities to students where there may not be a teacher or there's a teacher shortage within their classroom. This model will help students in remote areas with receiving the best possible education. As indicated, Saskatchewan is doing innovative and transformative things to make educational standing and opportunities for First Nations, Indigenous, Northern, and Métis students a priority. With strong instruction and support, there is significant opportunity to work with First Nations, Métis stakeholders to make our collective education system the best it can be for all students. I'd like to thank the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs for the invitation to speak on ways to improve the educational attainment of our students. I'm looking forward to the rest of our time as we engage in this discussion, an important topic. As we would say in Northern Saskatchewan, thank you, merci, teniki, and merci cho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Suzuki. And our witness, Lisa Smith, will have to be rescheduled for another time due to technical difficulties. So we will now continue on to our first round of questions, starting with 6 minutes with the Conservatives with Mr. Vidal.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations on your new appointment, and welcome, Mr. Aldag, to our committee. I look forward to the opportunity to get to know you. I'm going to start with Mr. Suzuki this morning, or this afternoon, I guess it is, right? It's been a long day. A couple questions for you in just in the context of some of the comments you made. The first one being around investments in early education. I had a very wise man tell me recently that if we want to improve graduation rates anywhere, okay, whether it's on reserve, off reserve, non-Indigenous schools, that we should focus on the reading rates from kindergarten to grade 3. And it's a longer term investment, but we have to start giving them that opportunity. And you talked about some of the investments that the province of Saskatchewan has made in early childhood learning and intervention. So I just want to give you an opportunity to speak a little bit further to that for a couple of minutes, and then I'll move on to another question.
So thank you for your question, MP Vidal. Absolutely. We know that we learn to read, and then we read to learn. And those are important aspects I think that everyone in this room is familiar with. Literacy and literacy knowledge is absolutely critical in the formation of any student to do well in any aspect of education. We believe that through strategic investments, such as early programming, is key, especially in communities that may be isolated and lack additional resources. So, of course, working with other levels of government, First Nations leadership, the province of Saskatchewan has engaged in several unique partnerships. One of them that I'll speak to is Kids First North. So we have about 6 announced in this last budgetary cycle of family resource centres across the province that work with families of all backgrounds, but also geographically in areas with high Indigenous families, numbers of high Indigenous families. And that is one aspect of working collectively to ensure that literacy is priority, best practices of engaging and teaching literacy is a practice, and also just providing resources for that aspect. But absolutely, if any suggestion as an educator, and I think anyone that's an educator in this room knows that early literacy is absolutely paramount for future success of all students. So thank you for this question.
Thank you. And I was going to just point out for the committee, and I forgot to do that at the beginning, that Mr. Suzuki is one of the youngest mayors ever elected in Canada. So he was elected as a mayor at 21 after being a councillor for a couple of years in his community of La Ronge. So that's I think that's a really, really cool fact about our witness today. Back to the topic, though. You talked about teacher recruitment and retention, and one of the things that I know is a struggle in my riding in Northern Saskatchewan, which you reside in. You know this, but specifically in First Nations schools, is the actual recruitment of teachers. And actually qualified teachers that are educated to be teachers. And so recruitment and retention is such an important factor. You talked about teachers learning in their respective communities have a higher success rate and are more inclined to stay and teach in the communities they call home. I just want to give you an opportunity to expand on that a little bit. And maybe, and I mean, I know this is not exactly where you work, but in the context of how that would apply in some of the First Nations schools in Northern Saskatchewan, how we might be able to learn something about attracting qualified and educated teachers into some of those communities that are struggling with that exact challenge.
So thank you for that. I do want to say that I stepped down after my second term. I did not run again, so I wasn't beat. So that's always a good thing as a politician, everyone in this room. That being said, in the teacher recruitment retention piece, there are some innovative things that are being done. One example is Clearwater River Dene Nation in La Loche has a Dene TEP program. So this is an educational program, four-year university program, partnering with First Nations University of Canada through the U of R, as well as funded by the Ministry of Advanced Education. And this is providing an opportunity for teachers to be trained in their local communities, working with school divisions and First Nations ed authorities to support them in practicum spaces. And again, ensuring that those teachers are engaged in the communities they're from. The first rendition of DTEP was created in 2006 after the horrific school shooting in La Loche. The students that went through that program, 80 to 90% of them are still engaged in Northern Saskatchewan teaching occupations. And I say 80 to 90% because when you become a specialized teacher, you're in high demand. And we've had several teachers go as far as British Columbia. Other provinces also hired them. So again, this is a good thing. School division is also working with the University of Saskatchewan having a program in Cumberland House. And what we're finding is when you have these teachers in the community, not only are building human capacity in that community, but also filling that void where teachers may not normally come to those communities to start off their careers. We're seeing a pinch across the country in terms of teaching teachers filling vacancies across jurisdictions, including circumpolar north regions, and this is a prime example of what's working. Absolutely, more significant investment could be done in this area, but for what's being invested, it's been an awesome thing to see.
I know my time is really short, right? So just, hey, add whatever comments you want to add around the concept of collaboration. I know that's a really important thing to you, so take the last few seconds you have and talk about collaboration.
Well, no, thank you for that. In terms of collaboration, obviously I'm here to talk about the innovative and great things the province of Saskatchewan is doing, but that's not to say there isn't more to be done. And the only way to do more for kids across Canada and Indigenous kids across Canada is to work with all levels of government and all stakeholders to work collectively and work from the perspective of those students that we're serving. Without having their voice and the voice of communities and elders, significant change won't happen to the educational establishments. So thank you for that. And again, that collaborative piece.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vidal. We'll now move to our Liberal member, Jaime Batiste, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations on being the chair. I'd like to ask Mr. Shizuki, during your intervention, you talked a little bit about how the province in 2007 mandated treaty curricula and I think that's a lot of the good work that's been done by the Office of the Treaty Commission in Saskatchewan. Now it's being run by the Treaty Commissioner Mary Culbertson, and they're doing some excellent work. And in fact, in the Nova Scotia, we went to Saskatchewan to see how the practice of treaty commissions could run in terms of creating best practices across the Canada. Can you tell me how you feel about, do you think that Indigenous students, when they see themselves reflected in the education system, in the curriculum, not just on reserve but everywhere, increases graduation rates?
Thank you for that question, MP Baptiste. Absolutely. Saskatchewan in 2007 implemented mandatory First Nations curricula throughout. Premier Wall at that time had indicated that that was a priority for the Ministry of Education. From that time, I can tell you significant improvements in not only attendance, but every other aspect of students seeing and reflecting themselves in that curricula. And of course, when you're attending school, you're seeing yourself reflected in that. Of course, you're going to succeed. The OTC does a tremendous job in terms of resourcing and supporting teachers across the province that may not even have a background or knowledge how to best approach those things, but with best practices. So that's been very important. The other thing I want to say, just from a personal perspective, 2 Indigenous boys. I'm non-Indigenous. My wife is from Saddle Lake Cree Nation, and she's sitting in the back there, obviously listening to me. But at that being said, we have a perspective, and seeing at home, our boys talk about certain things and where their grandparents perhaps had gone through and where they come from. Those are all positive things about creating who they are and how they fit into the educational system as a whole. So absolutely, sir. In terms of the resourcing from OTC, as well as mandating Indigenous curricula, are 2 important steps.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Shizuki. I'm going to turn my question to Dr. Moss, and she talked a little bit about the university. We've been focusing a little bit about high school graduation rates. Can you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the best practices around advancing reconciliation within campuses on university, and how they have led to better graduation rates at the university level for Indigenous students?
Oh, well, thank you for the question. And I was lucky enough, I came to University of British Columbia in 2018 and was able to be a co-lead on their refreshed Indigenous strategic plan. So just that process that took 2 years, it was launched in 2020, helped us get all the voices in. So we spoke to Indigenous students, faculty, staff, as well as non-Indigenous, and many community members and so forth, to be able to see what are people wanting, what do they need, and that's how we came up with the 8 goals, 4 of which I read earlier. And another one was spaces. So how do we reconcile spaces, which seem to be a big a thing for students? They want to know where to go, where are they welcomed, where can they find other people like them, other students and so forth, who can share their experiences. So in that realm, we were able to take the First Nations House of Learning, and which is housed within the First Nations Longhouse, and actually we just expanded it 2,500 square feet to add new spaces. What we did on the other end was start an Indigenous collegia, which is specifically for first years for most of the collegia on UBC. There's 6 or 7 of them, to be able to get people in and feel comfortable, build community and so forth. So we started an Indigenous collegium in the Longhouse. And that took also quite a bit of work and remodeling and recruiting and so forth. But we don't kick them out, if you will, after the first year. But we did recognize that first years really do need something. So at the First Nations House, we also recruited and onboarded a first year retention coordinator, recognizing that there is some drop off first year, especially the first term, first year, and especially when we just went through the pandemic and money was tight and people needed a lot of support and backup. So those are some literally making spaces, building spaces for people to come and feel comfortable, especially first year students. So the first year coordinator works both in the wider Longhouse and then also in the collegium. So there's a lot of resources for the people just coming in from high school.
Okay. Dr. Moss, I want to ask you, I know we've spent some time focusing on the students here. I want to focus on the professors a bit here as a former Indigenous professor. What are some of the key things that universities can do to make sure that their Indigenous professors feel supported and feel welcome in continuing their job helping our Indigenous students?
Right. Well, we do have sort of an informal, loose Indigenous caucus for faculty. We also have another group that is for Indigenous staff. And at the Longhouse, we've just started having Indigenous staff lunches, which is also faculty and staff. We just started this year, to do just what you're talking about, try to build community within the faculty, within the staff, to hear what's going on with the students, what's going on with curriculum, indigenizing, all the things that we talk about with decolonization, indigenizing, and reconciliation. And so this forum seems to be growing, and it's been very useful. We had such lunches and things for the students, but again, it was recognized that staff and faculty also needed this community building.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matisse. Nous allons passer à notre collègue du Bloc.
We will now turn to our colleague from the Bloc for 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I do congratulate you. I congratulate you in the name of my colleague, Marilyn Gill, and my own name as well, for your now being the chair of the committee. I would also like to thank the witnesses for being with us here today. However, it's very unfortunate, especially given that I am the speaker for Indigenous women's situations and in women in general. It would have been very helpful to hear the president of the National Women's Association of Canada, so it's very unfortunate that due to technical difficulties she cannot join us today. I certainly hope she'll be able to return to us another day so that we can hear her point of view. It's always very interesting, and she really does speak for Native women. That said, the two witnesses whom we do have with us, oh, by the way, another interesting point about the two witnesses we do have, they have spoken about the importance of intervening very early to ensure early learning. And I must say that in Quebec, this is something that we have understood well. We have our early learning and childcare system. And I can tell you that it changes a life to be able to take advantage of this type of programming even before you get into elementary school. Very important for young children. Now, my question for Mr. Sierzicki, and if Dr. Moss would like to add anything, that would be fine. We hear from what you're saying that being remote is a problem. And this is something that is often brought up in this committee's work and spoken of in many studies. We see this as well when we study the status of women. Knowing that women in rural communities or remote communities are affected differently by the issues that we study. We see that First Nations students must often leave their families to go to larger communities to study, so they lose the very critical contact with their family members, those whom they love, their culture, their land. You have been discussing the northern Saskatchewan, and I would like to hear you and Dr. Moss as well, if she wishes. I would like to hear you on this. You mentioned it in your prior answers, but I would like to hear more about this issue of remoteness, the isolation, and its effect on students.
Thank you for that question. In terms of remoteness, and definitely that, it creates significant challenges in many ways. One, of course, being able to provide those educational opportunities that otherwise are attainable in urban centers. Second to that, of course, is connectivity, ensuring that the infrastructure is in place if you are going to do other things to ensure that students have that access to either online learning or other aspects of that. The reason why Saskatchewan went or is in the process of going to a Treasury Board crown for centralized online learning is to provide those opportunities to students in remote and rural areas that perhaps they wouldn't otherwise get. It's very important to have a teacher in place to support that online learning. However, the specialties is where you can really get into specifics in terms of supporting those students, ensuring they have the credits and the opportunities for further post-secondary education or entering the workforce. You know, obviously, lots of compliment to the federal government as well as, federal governments of the past as well as provincial governments in terms of infrastructure development. We're only as good as the infrastructure in many communities. When you have, SaskTel being the provider of telecommunications in the province putting in infrastructure, those are huge things that need to take place in order to provide those online learning opportunities. So again, infrastructure, a big piece there. To challenge the remoteness aspect, I think there's a key thing that all levels of government should consider is, we have a centralized model of providing services to our citizens of Canada, of our province. But at times there's a decentralization movement that's also important, is ensuring that service providers develop relationships with communities and go into communities that I know, everyone from health, education, different aspects do go into communities, but it's creating that important relationship as you go in and building off of. So again, in educational terms, if you are sending in online learning supports, it's very important that those teachers that are working with those students actually go into the community at some point, talk to the students face to face, understand where they're coming from, understand their challenges, their opportunities, their families, and those aspects. Is it ideal and perfect based on time commitment? Not always, but it's an extremely important thing that needs to be done to tackle remoteness, remote and of course, rural type of learning opportunities. So thank you for that question.
Madame Moss, est-ce que vous avez...
Dr. Moss, would you have anything to add?
Just very briefly, thank you. The pandemic for university brought the idea of this remoteness to the fore. And what we had to learn, the professors, staff, everyone, that flexibility is key more so than it even has been with Indigenous students. Recognizing the added cost, if they had to purchase things, even if we helped out through the enrollment services programs and so forth, or if they had to do it on their own, and the additional time that is sometimes needed due to connectivity and so forth. But then there's the other side of the coin that even when they are living in Vancouver, it is really an expensive city to live in. And so whether they are remote or whether they're local, we've recognized that the support needed is profound.
Merci, Madame Laroche.
Thank you, Ms. Laroche.
6 minutes.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to thank Mark Gardno for the time he served as a chairperson, and he resigned before I had a chance to thank him. And Jenica, I welcome you to the chairperson seat, and I'm pretty sure that you will do a good job. The question I have is for Margaret and for Thomas afterwards. I will be speaking to the curriculum in colonized communities because people who come from colonized communities struggle more. There are people who were taken from camps and settled into one community. And because of this, a lot of the learning or teaching materials have not really changed at all. A lot of the teaching materials are in English and does not really serve the Indigenous people that are being taught. I wonder if this could be addressed. Margaret Moss, if you could reply to my question, I would appreciate it. We need to see more teaching material in our languages. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And yes, there is actually the Critical Indigenous Studies area programs at UBC, including First Nations languages as one of the programs there. But beyond that, as I had said, we've created an Indigenous strategic plan where indigenizing the curriculum is one of the aspects. I myself, when I'm not director of the First Nations House, I'm part-time as a professor in the School of Nursing. And after the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, they have mandated a course on Indigenous people's health. And so I teach one of those mandatory courses on I think it's, sorry, Indigenous promotion, health promotion. And so I know that the medical school and some others have mandatory courses. So there are pros and cons to the mandatory as it is in medicine and nursing. I know we're able to do it. There's the whole critical Indigenous studies area and some in law as well. However, we do run into the problem sometimes if coursework is mandated and there's no appropriate person trained in that area to teach it. So then there's the two sides of the coin of how to indigenize, with who to indigenize, who's going to make it appropriate and so forth. But I certainly do agree. I myself, I'm a U.S. citizen, but we have all the same issues. So I would have been like a 60s scoop person, but over there. And so I know exactly what you mean, and trying to then get back and figure out from that complicated history what's the truth, if you will. So I thank you for that question.
Of two aspects of the actual component of the question. One, in terms of language, absolutely, students need to have that opportunity to learn not only in their respective languages, but have materials that are reflective of them. We've been working with First Nations ed authorities as well as school divisions on materials that kids use within their respective communities, so whether it be Cree, Dene, Nakota, Lakota, depending on the geographical region of the province. We've ensured that those curricula are then accessible by other school divisions in the province so that they can adapt to the area of the province. So absolutely, the more the kids see themselves reflected and are able to communicate in their language, necessary for success. The other aspect I do want to touch on is experiential learning and land-based learning. As you indicated, there's that disconnect from the land of where kids have come from, cultural components. Many school divisions and the province as a whole has created curricula around land-based education and how to tie that into various aspects of the curriculum. You can easily do land-based education and tie in mathematics and sciences and social studies, First Nations ways of knowledge, right? So absolutely, those are two important aspects that I believe going forward, we do have to continue to invest our time in so that kids are reflective within what they're learning. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted another question I have is there are many student teachers or many people learning to be teachers, but now there are not as many people applying to become teachers because, again, a lot of the teaching material is in English. The learning material is in English. And if we're going to be recruiting Indigenous teachers, I think, I believe strongly that a lot of the learning material should be in the language that is respective in the schools that they will be serving in. There aren't northern teacher education programs running in the north, and a lot of the learning material that they use is in English, and that kind of creates a disconnect between the culture and the profession that they are pursuing. So, Tom and Margaret, if you could reply to my answer, question.
Second round.
Thank you for that question. In terms of teacher education programs, very innovative in Saskatchewan, the DENETEP, CTEP, and Indigenous Teacher Education Program are all utilizing language and cultural-based resources. So that's a tremendous point, and we're hoping that continues to grow, but much of their material is in the language that they're learning to teach in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And colleagues, we have time for a very short second round for 2 minutes. perhaps Ms. Moss, you could answer that in the second round, just in the interest of time. So we'll proceed to the Conservatives. Mr. Schmale for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Congratulations once again. Congratulations to Mr. Aldag. Nice to see him again, and welcome to the committee. Before I get into my question, just a bit of housekeeping. In the first round, when Gary Vidal was doing his questioning, you let him go about 12 seconds long. When I was in the chair, I cut him off 30 seconds early. He pointed that out to me. Just want to say, so if you want to cut him off in 45 seconds early, you'll have no complaints from this side. Thank you, witness, for coming, both of you. Since I have a very short period of time, maybe I will start with a witness here in person. According to the Indigenous Services Department's report, graduation rates on First Nations on-reserve students has gone down about 6%, whereas overall graduation rates for First Nation students are going up. Without getting too partisan, is there any lessons that you could pass along to ISC that you're doing differently that could potentially create a best practice situation where we can start to see an increase in these numbers?
Well, thank you for the question. In terms of improving the graduation rates, off reserve, again, in Saskatchewan is trending in a little bit different of a line. Is it still high enough? Absolutely not. So we as a province are still trying to figure out what the best practices are. In terms of investments, investments are important. Ensuring resourcing and having the capacity or the human capacity to deliver programs. So again, if you're a student in a urban location, you may have different supports than some other First Nations communities in the province. So therefore, it comes down to that expertise and support mechanism. Our hope and the goal is of our online school is to provide opportunities to all students across the province. So there's an example where you're bridging the divide between specialties and students where they may be in the province. But again, when it comes down to it, it definitely creates an issue when you don't have the supports in place or the access to those supports for those kids.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmale. Mr. Batiste for 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm going to go back to Dr. Moss. And Dr. Moss, we're going to be, at the end of this study, making us several recommendations on what we can do better. From the university and post-secondary angle, can you give us some very concrete kind of recommendations as to what students need for supports in post-secondary universities to be successful?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And I'll look at our challenges, and then so the recommendations will be the opposite. So flexibility is number one. That's a huge challenge for faculty, staff to understand the challenges of Indigenous students. And so there at times has to be flexibility to even the playing field. There has to be unique tailored supports or interventions. We need to meet the needs of the individuals because, again, we have a wide array of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, urban, reserve-based, and so forth. So there needs to be unique tailored supports. And again, as I had mentioned previously, for our students, and it could be for others, it's the cost of living in the city is horrendous. And so we have to find ways for monetary as well as other supports for them to be able to safely and securely get through without worrying about money at all times. There's the need for multiple spaces and inclusion. So there's this the idea of belonging is so important. And we need to make sure that there are spaces such as our collegia that we have within the Longhouse and others. And I'm glad the other witness brought up land-based learning. We have really partnered with the UBC farm and what's happening over there. So we have the Longhouse is the indoor, and then the farm is the outdoor. And we really try to bring some programming together where there can be smudging, if that's your tradition, fires and so forth. And then the idea of belonging in many other ways, such as was brought up that having a language, it's difficult and there's so many languages, but at least to have a few languages, which we do. And we do have an elder in residence for the Longhouse who is also in the language department, so there are some cross work going on there. And then
Sorry, Ms. Moss, I'll
ongoing
have to pass it to our next speaker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madame Laroche, for 2 minutes.
Ms. Laroche, 2 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, thanks to our witnesses for being here and ready to answer our questions. Mr. Sirziki, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've got 2 minutes. I'd like to know whether you could give us an overview of education for Indigenous students in Saskatchewan and what their needs are. What needs can be addressed by the federal government? And I would like you to speak to this if you can.
In regards to the needs of students, and I'm going to give you a perspective, the provincial perspective of what we know or what we've identified as kids needing to know. Perhaps then up to the federal government and, of course, representatives to then make their decision based off of that. In the province, we know that there's fundamental pieces that kids need in order to learn, and that being welcoming and a place that they belong, mental health supports, and the social dynamics of them being prepared to learn. When you take away those Maslow hierarchy of need aspects, when they come to school, they're ready to learn. As educators, there's a fine line of providing services, those types of services. However, it is up to the Ministry of Education and other government ministries to work collaboratively to support those kids. So if there's one thing that we've learned as a province is the siloed approach to governance in terms of how we provide educational opportunities to kids across the province, whether that's the Ministry of Social Services, whether it's Immigration Career Training, whether that's the Ministry of Health. We as ministries have a responsibility to work collaboratively for those opportunities. Until those barriers are brought down and that collaborative nature is imposed, kids will have a difficult time learning because the needs are significant.
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Ms. Idlo, for 2 minutes.
Margaret, I just want to hear what your response is to the question I posed earlier. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
I'm sorry. I just want to hear your response to the question I had earlier for you. If you could please respond to my question. Thank you. Like I asked, my question was in regards to lack of people applying or taking on teaching as a career opportunity or learning to become a teacher. I think the fact that the teaching and the learning material is mostly in English has a lot to do with it. Do you think that if Indigenous peoples were able to learn in their culture and their language, we would see more recruitment in teachers? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I remember it now. You know, at UBC, we do have the NITEP program for Native Teaching Education Program, sorry. Yeah, I'm sure it's mainly in English, but to answer your question, yes, it would actually make a huge difference. I could see where it should be almost hybrid, though, so their own language as well as English to be able to, you know, be able to operate where they have to in English and yet be able to teach in their own language when it is where they're teaching it. So in other words, to gain the skills overall, but to use both languages. So I have seen that some back in the U.S. Where I mainly have lived, to have both, for instance, Dakota and English, to be able to more appropriately teach either class to be able to bring people together. So absolutely, it would be very helpful to understand concepts and so forth in the language, your first language, but it's probably prudent to also have the English or French. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That concludes our first round. Thank you so much to Ms. Margaret Moss, Professor and Director of First Nations House of Learning, for joining us today, as well as Thomas Zerzicki from Saskatchewan Ministry of Education. As I mentioned, we will reschedule with the Native Women's Association as well. So thank you so much for your time today, and we'll take a brief pause as we prepare for our second panel. So first we have Suzanne Brandt, President of First Nations Technical Institute, here with us in person. Thank you very much for joining us. Michael Desgagne, President and CEO of Inspire. Thank you so much for joining us in person as well. And online we have Melanie Bennett, Executive Director of the Yukon First Nation Education Directorate. And you each have 5 minutes for opening remarks, and I will begin with Ms. Brandt. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee members. Sago sewa gwego gajijiri shushyangak stagayan denega nuinigiron wax garewage. My name is Suzanne Brandt, and I'm the President of the First Nations Technical Institute, member of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte and Bear Clan. Since 1985, we have been meeting educational needs of Indigenous students. We have served 112 different Indigenous communities in Ontario and 189 Indigenous communities across Canada. We are an Indigenous-led and governed post-secondary institute. We're recognized under the Indigenous Institutes Act of Ontario, which was passed in 2017, and we provide post-secondary programming in the areas of social science, health sciences, governance and policy, humanities, research and innovation, and aviation technology. Currently, we have enrolled in our programs over 450 students. 87% of those students are women. Our average age of student is 36 years old, and this is due to the barriers that currently exist in education. We provide high-quality education that links directly to employment. We use traditional ways of knowing, learning, and we use Indigenous knowledge, culture, and languages within all of our programs. So not only are our students gaining the skills and technology that they need, but they also gain the Indigenous knowledge. And we braid our healing and learning together. We recognize that a lot of our students have experienced many traumas, and so we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to unburden those traumas while they're in our programs. We provide student success facilitators and cultural advisors in all of our programming so that they're there to help support the students. And this helps to build the pride and confidence within our students as well. This has led to a graduation rate of over 92% in the last 3 years. We have also grown our enrollment by 203% since 2015. And every one of our programs that we currently are running are oversubscribed. And I'll just give you an example. We opened our enrollment for our practical nurse program March 9th, and today I can tell you that we have 80 applicants, and we can only take 15 students. There is more that needs to be done to support FNTI and Indigenous institutes, and so we can continue to support our learners. We require resources to deliver our programs, to meet the needs and the demands that are coming from our communities. Without adequate funding, we cannot provide our students with appropriate infrastructure and fully culturally relevant curriculum and supports. And we cannot meet the increasing program, community, and economic needs. I just want to give you another example. Bill C-92, respecting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children, youth, and families, was passed in June of 2019. First Nations are working very hard to set up their own child well-being agencies, and we've been asked to provide the training. So we went ahead and we developed a 4-year degree program in Bachelor's of Indigenous Social Work. We obtained regulatory accreditation across Canada, and now the program's accredited in Ontario. And we're going to offer this program in January of 2024. This morning there was 677 expressions of interest. We can only accept 36 students. This issue is beyond social work. Every program we currently offered, as I mentioned, is oversubscribed. We have wait lists. We have 8 other Indigenous programs that are under development that have expressed interest and also community interest. It is frustrating that we have so many interested learners who want to enroll in our programs, but because of funding constraints, we can't serve them. So, Madam Chair, I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bryant. We'll now move to Mr. De Gagne for 5 minutes.
Thanks very much for the invitation to provide some input into this very critical report, and long overdue, and I'm glad you're examining this. We've provided a brief earlier today that outlines the contributions that Inspire makes to post-secondary education. Inspire is an Indigenous organization which works with governments and many hundreds of donors across Canada to raise funds to provide scholarships and bursaries to Indigenous post-secondary students. We would have given this year probably in excess of 7,000 scholarships and bursaries for in excess of $26 million. So it's an organization that has become a critical resource for Indigenous students. My remarks won't focus on statistics as much as two sort of historic contexts for this report that I hope that you'll consider. I'll go first to 1967, the year of Confederation. And while many were supportive of and very positive about Confederation in Canada's 100th birthday, there was a famous report put out, speech really, by Chief Dan George called The Lament for Confederation, where he outlined some of his concerns with where Canada was going. And one of the things that he said in that, and I'll quote, he says, "I shall grab the instruments of the white man's success, his education, his skills, and with these new tools, I shall build my race into the proudest segment of your society." So at the time, within the context of his speech, we know that the policy of enfranchisement was in force, which forced Indigenous people to trade membership and registration in their home community for an opportunity to enter into the university, a choice that very few people could make. And so this essentially kept us out of the university. The most significant predictor of entry into a university is whether or not your mom and dad went, or someone very close to you and your family went. And so without the backdrop of many generations of people attending post-secondary education, we were new to this, and we are still new to this. And I think if you consider this as an important part of your report, this is only the second generation of our people who have gone to university. And we are embracing it. The second, I think, important point is it occurred in 1972, and that was this is the 50th anniversary, and in my view, I think it should be celebrated, was the famous policy of Indian control of Indian education. And it was created by an amalgam of reports and policies that had been produced by all the provinces and territories at the time, Indigenous, from the Indigenous quarter. And they talked about lessons and the philosophy of survival in the 20th century. And they said, "Pride encourages us to recognize and use our talents, as well as to master the skills needed to make a living. Understanding our fellow men will enable us to meet other Canadians on an equal footing, respecting cultural differences while pooling resources for the common good. And we must live in harmony with nature, which will ensure the preservation of the balance between man and his environment, which is necessary for the future of our planet." I think this is exactly 50 years later what is still guiding Indigenous education and is critical to our thinking today. Of the 30,000 plus Indigenous post-secondary students, as I said before, we've embraced this. Financial need remains the largest barrier to success, and my colleague from NTI has just outlined that in a very specific way. But we are still attending in record numbers, and while many students require additional help, we are outstanding in many ways. Organizations like Inspire are supporting our academic excellence. There is an urgency to Indigenous post-secondary education. I can't say this enough. Our young population is not a future burden on society. Our young population represents an opportunity to make an outsized impact on Canadian society. We need to double down now. We are at the margins, but we are moving to the center. And that, in my view, that movement from the margins to the center is what reconciliation is all about. So from my own perspective as a former university president in Canada and now with an Indigenous education organization, I would say that our challenges are to encourage greater numbers, to inspire students to broaden their degree and career options. We tend to choose the same narrow fields of study. To help others to help our students see graduation as a first step, not a terminal event, and to make academic life better reflect the growing Indigenous reality in the post-secondary environment. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. de Gagné, and we'll move to Ms. Bennett online for 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak and listen to me. My name is Melanie Bennett. I am a Trondikachin First Nation. I am the granddaughter of Alice and Alfred Titus and the daughter of the late Chief Hilda Titus. I am a lifelong educator, serving Indigenous children for more than 30 years now as a teacher and an administrator, and I currently have the honor in the role as the Executive Director to the newly formed Yukon First Nations Education Directorate. And I am also a technician with the Yukon Chiefs Committee on Education. I'm joining you from Whitehorse, Yukon, where I'm currently sitting in a little room because we are hosting our 4th annual education conference with hundreds of people participating in person and over Zoom for the next 2 exciting days. So I really do appreciate the opportunity. Here in Yukon, we are in the early years of implementing a First Nations education strategy that was determined by our Chiefs Committee on Education in 2019 in regards to K-12 education and getting our students to post-secondary education based on decades of work from the leaders that precede us. The CCOE brings together 10 self-governing First Nations and non-self-governing Yukon First Nations to transform the education system in Yukon in order to close the appalling education gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous students by reclaiming authority over First Nations education in the territory. The work here is dire and it's urgent. The CCOE established the Yukon First Nations Education Directorate in 2020 to deliver programs and a Jordan's Principle wraparound service to support First Nations and Indigenous students and families throughout the Yukon. We also were integral to establishing the work of establishing the First Nations School Board that has assumed authority through referenda for the operation of 8 public schools in Yukon. And next year, they will operate 11 public schools in partnership with the government of Yukon. In only 3 years, YFNED and the First Nations School Board have begun to make deep systemic changes to education in the territory. We are seeing firsthand Indigenous students and their families receiving the cultural and education supports they need to thrive in a system that finally reflects their Yukon First Nation worldview. It's too early to present any data, but we know things are starting to turn around for our students. This is just the first step in the vision of the CCOE. The final step is the creation of a Yukon First Nations school system, funded directly through an REA with the federal government. So those Yukon First Nations who choose can finally assume full responsibility over education of their children without the government's public school system and its restrictive and colonial policies and legislations to further impact our children. For 20 years, many Yukon First Nations here have had jurisdiction over education with their self-governing agreements, with the ability to draw down on the program service transfer agreement that were negotiated then. And yet not a single First Nation has fully drawn down their PSTA because so many Yukon First Nations have realized that it may not be in their best interest to do it in small numbers. First Nations understand and rather working as a unified whole under the CCOE, Yukon First Nations now have the financial and the organizational capacity and strength to actualize their vision for First Nations control of First Nations education. Right now, Yukon First Nations remain decades behind First Nations in south of 60, who have significantly more control over their education. Since the 1960s, Yukon First Nations have been abandoned by the Government of Canada in the area of education when it transferred the responsibility for First Nations education to the Government of Yukon without any notice or consultation with the First Nations. And our students have suffered generation after generation under the assimilative authority of a government in the Yukon public school system. It's clearly demonstrated in the Auditor General reports that have been repeatedly done in the Yukon, showing the deplorable results. And now that the CCOE is entering into a formal partnership with the Government of Canada through the negotiation of an MOU to address the issues around multi-year adequate funding for YFNED and the First Nations School Board, and secondly, to provide the negotiation of an REA that addresses the unique needs of both self-governing and non-self-governing Yukon First Nations. This would support the creation of a Yukon First Nation education system that would truly be for First Nations by First Nations. including the construction of First Nations schools within the territory. I really appreciate, again, being able to come and speak to you before this, and I really look forward to your questions. So thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this study, and I look forward to elaborating and discussing the unique position of Yukon First Nations education in Canada.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bennett. We'll now proceed to our first round of questions, beginning with the Conservatives with Mr. Malilo for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today to be a part of this important discussion. I appreciate all of your testimony so far, and I know that we'll get lots more great information from the questions. So I'd like to start with Mr. Degagne. I've done a little bit of reading about Inspire and learning more about what the work you're doing, and it is quite incredible work. As I understand, the goal, or at least one of the goals of the organization, is that within a generation, every Indigenous student will graduate, and I think that's an incredible goal, and obviously one we should all be aiming for. And you mentioned off the hop that you weren't going to talk too much about data in your opening remarks, but unfortunately, I'm going to ask you about data. But I know you're well equipped to handle that. We've had some, I guess, conflicting information here at the committee in prior meetings that caused a bit of a stir, and it highlighted to me a glaring issue where, depending on where you're sourcing your information from, you can get drastically different information, particularly around things like graduation rates of Indigenous students. I also understand that Indigenous Services Canada is not monitoring the graduation rates of students that are in the public school system off reserve, which I think is an issue as well, because obviously there are many Indigenous students in that system that certainly should not be forgotten or neglected by any means. So I'm wondering if you have any comments to the effect of how the government can best ensure that they're gathering accurate information, perhaps more uniform information, so that government can make the best decisions and have the most accurate information to do that.
Yes. We have an inability to answer really fundamental questions and find fundamental data about Indigenous education in Canada. So if you were to say, for example, as we emerged from this whole idea of being kept out of the universities in the 70s, et cetera, and you say, well, okay, what's our baseline? How many students did we have in university, in colleges in 1980, for example, and 1990? You'd be hard-pressed to be able to find a number that everybody can agree on. Those numbers were never kept in a uniform way, so they may reflect only First Nations. They may reflect First Nations and Inuit and not Métis. They don't generally, they may include trade schools, colleges, some universities. It depends on the reporting. I think there's a lot of wisdom in having a report like this drive the data gaps that exist, and to have to establish an organization that can give us the data that we need in order to make good decisions. We have a very good system of gathering the number of people who come in the front door of a college and university, but very, very few to gather how many go out the back door when they graduate. And so, and this is simply because every organization and every government seems to collect its data in a different way. So there is a real need here to standardize data collection. And I don't doubt that when you get 10 experts here who give you 10 different answers, I don't doubt that a bit. And so I think they're all coming from their own place. And I think that there's a real opportunity here for us to lead in this area, for us to have a uniform set of a rubric for data collection.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You also mentioned something to me that in your opening remarks that stood out quite a bit, and you mentioned around Indigenous students, using your words, having the same narrow fields of study, or going into the same narrow fields of study, I believe was the expression you used. I'm just wondering if you could maybe contextualize that a little bit for us and speak to perhaps why that's happening and how we could address that.
Yeah, I in spite of being in administration, as many administrators do, I taught at when I was an administrator in order to keep sort of your finger on the pulse of what's happening in the institution, and so I taught a contemporary Indigenous issues course, and I assumed that the people who would be attracted to this course would be people who didn't know much about it, so non-Indigenous students. No, it was almost exclusively Indigenous students. And I remember asking on the first day, what are you guys doing here? Why are you interested in this? Because we don't know these things. And a lot of this is about a reinforcement of identity. We like to come to classes where there are lots of Indigenous students. We know they'll be there. We like to study together. There were some classes, there was a critical mass of Cree-speaking students that where a lot of the discussion occurred in Cree. So it was really interesting for me to see. But you will find that I think a lot of Indigenous students choose Indigenous studies or Canadian history, especially with an Indigenous focus, for these reasons, for the idea of collegiality, of coming together with another group of Indigenous students. Where this is challenging is when we at Inspire, for example, get all sorts of requests to find students in physics, AI, different scientific disciplines, and we realize we have very, very few numbers there. So we have to do, there's a critical need to direct students, or at least to give them a sense of what the options are for them beyond sort of their first choice, and to intervene with them maybe in their third year of university to say, you're doing well, but there's a lot, the world's a big place, and here's some options for you based on what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Malello. We'll move to Mr. McLeod for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations. And thank you to the presenters today. Very, very interesting and very inspiring. When I first entered the workforce, one of my jobs that I held for a number of years was band manager in my home community. And the elders on our council would encourage our council to do more so that our young people could stay in school, to get educated, because that was the way forward. But it was a tough task. And, we didn't have the financial resources, we didn't have capacity, and it was always frustrating for everybody involved. So I'm really happy to hear that things are starting to change. What did work, though, was on-land programs. We also seen the summer camps get a lot of young people applying because they're all together and they're all friends. And we'd always recognize that the attitude of the students would change when an elder walked into the room. There was a lot more respect. Things would quieten down. So I listened with interest when the Yukon First Nations representative talked about cultural-based learning being a big part of the schools. And I wanted to ask her to explain to us how important this priority is that they've set for the Yukon schools, and how it'll help better prepare students for educational success.
Thank you for that question. I think it's integral. I really appreciate your comments about on-the-land learning, cultural learning. There are lots of descriptors too. In Yukon, as an Indigenous person, we say it's our way, it's how we do things. And it's integral to our worldview. I think the most important thing, and I've heard from some of the other presenters, even in that streamlining, is our students, when they know they have a sense of place, which is so important to us, and that sense of place comes from the land. It is all within our own worldview. That sense of place has to be built in the education system as well. Currently, the sense of place in the education system for an Indigenous student is very fragile. It is built on an industrial model of moving children through by grades to attain this thing called a graduation certificate and move on into the world. It has benchmarks in ones that I, as an Indigenous person, have had to meet, graduating, being one of 12 in my family that made it through the system. And then moving on into university and getting a bachelor degree, and then a Bachelor of Education and a master's degree, and then moving on further into a PhD. But I would look at my Indigenous elders and colleagues, that I would call them, because those are our PhDs. When we build that equity and demonstrate that to our children, that PhD is the same as an elder sitting there, and give them the ability to have that sense of place and not have the feeling of they are less than, but equitable too, will then lead to the success. It can't be just the pictures on the wall. I often, as an educator, would hear the cultural inclusion, which really alludes to that you're going to fit us into a model. It's when we partner, and I think the school board agreement that we've implemented here in the Yukon is a model of that, a beginning start to it. When we partner to say we're both coming in at an equal stance, and we have to learn. So that duality that comes with it is where we will find success.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you because I really wanted to ask this question to all of you, because our report is going to be based on what you're recommending to our committee. So I wanted you to, each one of you, to tell us what financial support gaps do First Nations education institutions suffer from the most, and how can the federal government and provincial or territorial governments do a better job offering more targeted support in these cases?
About 30 seconds apiece, please.
Am I going? I would say from us in Yukon, the greatest financial support would be to provide that there would be finances for access to do those the on-the-land learning. It costs more. It takes a lot more intensive work, and it needs to be funded appropriately. And then the second piece to that is the funding for training and tracking that.
I would say that what's mostly needed is some sort of consistency in the funding. I'm not going to comment on how much, because more is better. But when we create programs for the general population, when we try to address a problem in the general population, we create structures with people in them, and they're ongoing. In the First Nations community, Inuit community, Métis community, we tend to create projects or programs that are temporary, that go on from one year to the next. So if I had to categorize the needs of funding for, let's say, the university system as they address Indigenous students, it's just that everything is temporary. Everything is 1 year at a time, one project at a time. And you can't build a system of support on temporary funding.
I think for an institute like FNTI, we need operational funding. Right now, we're only getting $360,000 from the federal government to support our programs, and yet we have great success. And if we had adequate operational funding, we could bring in any Indigenous student without tuition. We could open our Indigenous programming to our Indigenous students and not have to charge the tuition. They wouldn't have that burden that's put on them. And it's not a lot of money. I mean, in terms of the return on that investment, when you look at graduation rates like we have of 92, 94, 97%, depending on the year, it's not a lot to invest in to be able to see that kind of result. And also programming that is Indigenous-based.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Madame Laroche, pour 6 minutes.
Ms. Laroche, 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to thank our witnesses, Ms. Brantz, Mr. Desgagnés, Ms. Bennett. I would like to hear you on the following. You've already mentioned it a few times in your answers to prior questions put by myself and my colleagues, but since we began this study on improving graduation rates for Indigenous students, we have had different views on the needs of communities and organizations shared by organizations out in the field who are able to see on the front line what's needed to improve the situation for their students and improve their success rates. We have heard about the gaps and have seen clearly through your eyes and the eyes of others what they are. Infrastructure, for example. But I would like to know perhaps what's most urgent, what you see from your point of view that we could take good note of for this study. Project funding, for example, is not of the best approach. Ongoing funding or funding you can count on is one thing you've already brought up.
Support's there for the students. So for us, the reason that we have such success in our organization is that we have cultural advisors in every program. So they're an elder in the program that actually informs the curriculum from an Indigenous worldview and understanding. The other is that we have to be able to unburden those traumas that have affected generations. And so that's why I was saying we braid our learning with healing, so that the students have the opportunity through circles and processes that the faculty, the cultural advisor, and the student success facilitator help them. So they're not only learning the skills, but they're also learning to become whole again. So those kinds of resources are critical to the success of a student.
We at Inspire, we offer support to students, and in this day and age where we can do it online or via Zoom, it works very well. And so what we offer for students who are in college and university are the typical academic supports. How to write an essay, how to get along in first year university, how to choose courses, these types of things. Not long ago, we offered an introduction to the Mohawk language. Sold out. Hundreds of students signed up to take it. We had to split it over 2 nights. We introduced, an introduction to Anishinaabemowin, the Anishinaabe language. Sold out. And so what's interesting is that we are trying to develop, we see as a gap their knowledge about university, but that's not a gap. What they are identifying as a gap as students is their cultural supports. They want some sort of cultural grounding in order to get through. And so I think that's very, very important. And I think the other part is that we don't think enough of is as they're approaching graduation and about to become professionals in one place or another, to connect them with other Indigenous emerging professionals, to have places where the Indigenous students we have in Teachers College can connect with other students in Teachers College, so that they have a process of peer and professional support out there for them. That's also something that's emerged for us.
Donc, je comprends que c'est encore.
So I understand from what you've said, and thank you, Ms. Brandt and Mr. Desgagnés, how important it is to have role models. We've heard from prior people appearing before us, how important it is for youth to have people to emulate. You said something very important about language as well, Mr. Desgagnés, and a study organized by my colleague from the Bloc Québécois, from Manicouagan, also touched on that, the importance of language and cultural knowledge. And other colleagues have pointed out and mentioned how important the Indigenous languages are for transmission of knowledge. Could you say a little bit more about how important that is? What would you say? Would you say that it is essential for improving success, educational success, because you, Mr. Gagne, have mentioned healing circles, and so have you, Ms. Brandt.
For sure. For us, all of our curriculum has Indigenous learning outcomes, so they're working towards, understanding who we are from an Indigenous perspective, but also an Indigenous worldview. And there's some really critical points in the language that actually sort of drive that understanding. In our languages, they're verb-based, so it actually creates pictures. It's beautiful, like to understand in the language you're positioned, you understand what your relationship is with someone you're speaking to or with the rest of creation. And so it's important that, that we see that reflected in everything that we do within our institutes for success. Our students need to see themselves, they need to have their language, they need to be working towards those goals and things that make sense to them, to us as Indigenous people. So.
Thank you, Madame Laroche. Mr. Leo, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me begin with that as Indigenous people, we value our culture very much. I think the federal government should also value our culture. Now, the federal government funded residential schools and federal day schools. Some of those who went to residential schools were sent away from their families so that their cultural language would be wiped out. Now, there was a lot of money spent on residential schools where they hired teachers, and there were children shipped out to these residential schools, and that cost a bundle of money. Now, when reconciliation is being talked about, it seems like all that money that was spent on residential schools have just dissipated somewhere. There's hardly any funding for any schools now, or educators, or education. Now, now we hear that schools that are operated by Indigenous teachers and Indigenous peoples have very little funding. Now, we have heard in Nunavut since in 26 years, and 1951 to 1971, there were 13 schools where there were residential schools where these residential school students were getting beaten, their languages and their culture and their identity beaten out of them. Now, I want to ask, are you in agreement with me that the federal government should provide more funding to revitalize the culture, the language, and the identity of First Indigenous peoples, and so we can keep our culture and language alive? If the government could spend astronomous amounts of money back then, why can't they give more funding these days? I would like to hear your answers if possible, but I'm pretty sure that time is tight. But I just wanted to ask this question. Thank you.
About a minute apiece. Would we still have 3 minutes?
Okay.
I'd like to actually say on that, I really appreciate that question. I would very much agree. I know in Yukon, what I do on a daily basis with the Yukon First Nations Education Directorate and the Chiefs Committee on Education in our work. I firmly believe that we would be flourishing, our children would be flourishing if we had our own school. And unfortunately, we are one of the regions that has not had that opportunity when First Nations control of First Nations education, as one of my colleagues there had alluded to in the 1972 Indian control of Indian education came. Moving forward with that, and even with the current existing federal government 10 principles, those are things that I think are benchmarks that could help to move exactly that. I think things would be significantly different, and we wouldn't see, it's not one, it's not two, we've had 4 really bad Auditor General reports on Yukon education that has clearly stated things are not moving for the Indigenous students. And things have started to move since the Chiefs put in place an Indigenous organization who could be the conduit to help everyone understand how our way is and how we can implement that into a learning environment. Because the learning environment may not necessarily be in a building, it may be on the land. But it's really important that we have one that is ours. So I would wholeheartedly support that funding be put toward especially infrastructure so that we could have a First Nation school in Yukon.
There's about 45 seconds left.
Previously worked with an organization called the Aboriginal Healing Foundation for 15 years, starting in 1998. And we were struggling in the early going, to try and to sharpen our mandate, to find out, what survivors of residential school really wanted. And so we conducted a series of consultations, one-day events across the country, 36 across the north and from coast to coast. And in those 36 consultations, without exception, the number one loss that was identified and the number one need was the rejuvenation of language. Number one. Everybody talked about it. And we thought, wow, that's amazing. It's going to be something to do with a health-related or, mental health or something like that. Everybody wanted language first. And so I think you're right. I think, in some ways, cultural rejuvenation is up to us. We define our culture, and it's up to us to bring it back. But I think the catalyst for that is the rejuvenation of language, and that's where we need support. And I think it has to be very broad-based.
Thank you very much, Ms. Didlow. We do have time for a kind of condensed second round, so we'll go to Mr. Zimmer, I believe, for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to ask the question to Melanie Bennett in Yukon. I appreciate all the witnesses appearing today, and congrats to our new chair as well. But my question, Melanie, and you've referred to it earlier, I'm just going to quote a Yukon News article about the long-standing gaps in student outcomes persist as Yukon government works to close them. And it starts off, the territorial government is taking steps that it hopes will lead to better student outcomes nearly 3 years after an Auditor General's report slammed the Department of Education for falling short of understanding and addressing long-standing gaps. And it goes on. According to the March 9 news release, the department created a performance and analytics unit in 2018 to better manage and analyze student performance data. And a joint data working group was created in 2020 with the Chiefs Committee on Education to improve data sharing with Yukon First Nations about student outcomes. And lastly, as for the breakdown by self-identification status, the graduation rate among Yukon First Nation students was 66% or 65 out of 98 potential graduates. The graduation rate was even lower for other Indigenous students at 63% or 22 out of 35 graduates. And so I bring that up because I know and I appreciate why you are doing what you're doing in your organization. Really appreciate, as a former teacher myself, and really have a heart for students and kids and want to see them, get through high school to achieve greater success in life. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity. You said you'd like to elaborate in your earlier testimony. I want you to elaborate on the what's next. We know why you're here. You're here to help things get better in Yukon. Please elaborate.
So first I'll elaborate on that data because people hear 66% and they say, well, that's not bad. You're better than 50, right? It's not 66% as a graduation rate. It's 66% of the 30% of students that made it to grade 12. And so the data working group that's been put in place for 3 years has been working very hard to try and have that accountability to Yukon education. And it is very difficult to get any data. So YFNED being in place is now working very hard to develop our own data. We could have the relationship of saying, let's just ATIP it and figure it all out from there, but that's not being done as our elders teach us in a good way. Ultimately, what our goal is student success. It's determining how that will be. I really appreciated some other folks who spoke of, it seems to be there's this benchmark of get them to university. But that necessarily isn't always the path for all of our Indigenous students. And so we've developed a model that will provide them success in their chosen path. Because for us, a chosen path is to come home and be a community member. That could be a language speaker. That could be a doctor. That could also be a ditch digger. And they're helping in their community. That's what we want, are people who are going to come back to the communities. I bet you every one of us in the last storm really appreciated the person that was able to drive the snowplow. Those are the things that we have to build in our children, the strength to do that, and that's what we're trying to do. I appreciate that data, that you brought up data, because that is an important thing. It will give us the benchmarks and the ideas and find the gaps, because one of those things that we are seeing is that there are some successes. And so we implemented programming this year, and for the first time, we have an improvement in math because of the Indigenous-led math camps that we've been operating with targeted interventions to the students. Now, if I could get Yukon Education to implement that same thing, instead of me and the organization being a one-off of doing that, I think we would see greater achievement outcomes for our students. That's what we mean by Indigenous-led. We need to listen and hear from our people of what are the gaps and things that we need for our children and how we can fit them in a ministry-operated system, in a First Nations school board, or in a First Nations school that's operated by an individual First Nation.
My time's up, Melanie, but I just applaud your efforts and wish you all the best and success. And we look forward to hearing that positive data in a few years when you have it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmer, and we'll now proceed to Mr. Badaway for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll preface my comments by echoing Mr. Zimmer's comments with respect to applauding the efforts of all of you. Great work, and I want to concentrate and focus in on the strengthening of capacity. And as many of you know from our meetings in the past, and when I visited many communities throughout the past year, you recognize that ISK, in particular the department that I represent, is moving forward with, for example, water legislation, the replacement of the Safe Drinking and Water for First Nations Act, looking at Indigenous health. We're looking at capacity with respect to long-term investments to support closing the infrastructure gap. And the list goes on. The Business Navigator program that will assist Indigenous businesses in finding supports across the federal family with all departments, not just ISK, but infrastructure, health, and the list goes on. So I do want to concentrate on Ms. Brandt in terms of, and I guess I got a bit of a bias because we've done some work together in the past, but if I have time, I will also be going to Mr. Degagne and others. But Ms. Brandt, some of the things that you're looking at right now with respect to the people that you represent, in particular as it relates to your partnership with both colleges and universities, but sort of getting a bit more granular on how you are strengthening the capacity to allow it to be very personal in terms of the next generation of those that are going to be working in our Indigenous communities, and to then allow more culture-based programming, culture-based response to the needs with respect to what I already mentioned. And lastly, to ensure that that sustainability exists for many generations in the future, especially as it relates to managing infrastructure, asset management, and the list goes on. Can you speak a bit more about that? And one, what you're doing, as you mentioned earlier, if you can get a bit more into the weeds on that. But secondly, what some of those recommendations that you may have to actually enhance and strengthen those needs.
That's exactly what we're doing, is building capacity. And with the Indigenous Institutes Act that was passed in Ontario, it gives us the right to now graduate all the way from certificates to graduate degrees in our own knowledge, but also meeting the requirements of regulatory bodies and things. And as you mentioned, just like, for example, the Indigenous Bachelors of Social Work, that program builds Indigenous social workers that can then go back into community and actually address the issues in ways that are very culturally appropriate. And for us as FNTI, we have our own capacity to be able to develop programs, to be able to support students, and to graduate students. And as I mentioned, our average age of our student is 36 years old this year. And so they're already trying the mainstream system, or they didn't succeed in high school. We've got all those systems in place to be able to bring them in and then train them and develop that capacity. We're also a research institute, so we're developing that capacity to be able to bring back into communities what our needs are, and then them figure out the solutions to those issues. So that's, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. DeGagne, do you want to comment on that?
Well, I'd have to say it from the perspective of Inspire, and just in terms of strengthening our capacity. And one thing I've noticed is that, as I said before, we get funding from the federal government and from provincial governments, and then we have Canadians, donors, corporations that step up and match those funds, and that's what provides us with a pool to fund Indigenous students. So strengthening our own Inspire's capacity with those sorts of matching funds from the federal government we have a long list of donors that are interested in that sort of thing, from people who give us $100 at a time to people who give us $1 million at a time. And so I think I'm absolutely astonished at how many Canadians are interested in providing support to Indigenous people and Indigenous students specifically. And they do so not to see Indigenous people as having some sort of deficit that has to be fixed, but supporting the excellence of our students, the ones that want to go on to graduate studies and professional studies. And there is a group of our students who need to be acknowledged for their excellence, and I think that's where the real capacity strengthening will occur.
Thank you, Mr. Badaway. That concludes your time. Yes, thank you. Madame Laroche.
Ms. Laroche, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much. Madam Chair. So I see that in this committee, people do enjoy each other's company. That's what I'm feeling, and all the better for that that's the case. We don't want to partisan a split here. We want to be able to be comfortable together. So thanks again to the witnesses for participating in our study. Mr. DeGagne, unfortunately, you didn't have a chance to answer my prior question then. Ms. Brandt did say some very important things about language. You did touch on language a little bit in responding to a question put by one of my colleagues, how important it is to motivate them to persevere in their studies, but I'd like to know if you have anything else to add on that. You did say that when you were consulting communities and students, they said it was a priority for them.
I think this is an excellent question, because I don't think we consider language as the doorway into to support for education. We see it as something that's maybe more tied to culture, but language seems to be a critical piece of all of this. 6 years ago, in 2016, 2017, I was sitting on a departmental audit committee for Indian Northern Affairs. And the department, we got a copy of the department's results report, the annual results report. And in there, it said, there was a sentence that I was just astounded by. It said, in spite of 30 years of sustained funding to Indigenous communities across the country, we have not been able to improve the Community Wellbeing Index of the Government of Canada vis-a-vis the difference between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. So the Community Wellbeing Index gap between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people had not closed one bit after 30 years of funding from Indian Northern Affairs. That's billions and billions and billions of dollars of investment. And so I would suggest that I thought it was a very honest admission that in spite of all of our efforts, a lot of things have not improved, health, education, et cetera. So I would suggest we do something different. And I would, I think using language as a portal into the educational improvement might be that difference. Might be something I think interesting that this committee can entertain in its report. It may be that you have to be very bold and leave some space for something that you haven't thought of before, or you've thought of it before, but that hasn't been tried before. But if the report results in simply identifying weaknesses, but doesn't propose anything that's new or different, that's never been tried before, I think we'll have lost a tremendous opportunity.
Merci, Madame Laroche.
Thank you, Ms. Laroche.
Susan Brandt, Q ila apere kau yaga man negoveo Q pivekaktitima vagit apere kanera karoma apere kanera sugunak tonga kisene kaina apere kau yaga Q yunak piulakai.
We didn't have a translation for that one. If you can.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please? I want to ask Suzanne Brandt. I posed a question to you earlier, so I would like to hear your answer because you are doing very important work. And because you are always lacking funding too, so I wanted to ask. I think we should have more investments, or have. I wanted to ask, do you get any funding from the governments or the funding you get from the federal government, is it adequate to invest in the programs that are crucial to our culture and language, so to speak?
So we get very little funding from the federal government. Most of our support is coming from the provincial government at this time. And so it would be really beneficial to invest from the federal government in the programs that
I think we're on the last
like we have programs we're already developing in midwifery, which is really important from, again, an Indigenous.
Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Brandt. Ms. Bennett, could you mute your microphone? Thank you.
The other thing I think would be beneficial in terms of health outcomes and getting back to the land is we have a 4-year degree program in Indigenous sustainable food systems. And of course, that's going to make a big difference in terms of food sovereignty, food security, and getting back to understanding our relationship to the natural world. So yeah, an investment from the federal government in program development that can again address, the capacity development from an Indigenous lens will make a huge difference. And then we can graduate, we have a program in Indigenous language instruction. So we want to be able to graduate our own people to bring back those things to our communities. So that kind of investment in programming in an Indigenous institute would make a huge difference, especially in FNTI. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Idlow. And that concludes our round for today. Thank you so much, Ms. Brandt, Mr. DeGagne, and Ms. Bennett for your testimony today, for spending your time with us. We're very grateful. And thank you to our committee members. Is the committee in agreement to adjourn the meeting? All right.
Aussie.